what you're seeing in fuel gets everyone's attention. There's inflation, and that's what your audience is probably concerned with because they don't want to get squeezed. And by the way, like that's what the refineries are worried about as well, hey? Because their cost of their source fuels are coming up.
Fuel costs are rising, but energy expert Andrew O'Farrell says the real danger is coming.
The main card is gas. 20% of the world's LNG comes out of Qatar. And you don't want to float a large bomb out through a very narrow strait. And they've actually shut a lot of the facilities. There's a facility called the Ras Laffan. And it's the largest gas field in the world. And that's going to leave a mark, no matter what happens.
Before we jump into this episode, I'm going to ask you a quick favor. We're coming up to 500 episodes of the Site Shed podcast now. It's apparent that only a small percentage of people that actually listen to this show follow us on the platform. Following us helps in a big way. It helps us understand the type of content that you want more of, which is why we continue to make better and better episodes. I would be super grateful if you could take a couple of seconds right now just to quickly hit follow on the app you're listening on. That would make the world of difference. Thank you so much for being part of this Site Shed journey. We look forward to sharing the next 500 episodes with you. Andrew, welcome back to the Site Shed podcast.
It's been a long time.
Been a minute. So thanks for joining us. I guess opening statement here, back in December last year, it would cost me about $1.60, $1.70 to fill up my four-wheel drive with diesel. This week, I filled it up for $2.60. What the fuck is going on?
What just happened? And why does that matter? Yeah.
So,
and it's a great question because you know what? Everyone all over is asking that, right? And they go, why does a battle in the Middle East matter about where my fuel is coming from? And especially since, do we really get fuel from the Middle East? I thought we have energy here in Australia. And the answer is all of that's true, but it doesn't actually matter because the fuel that you get, that diesel, we only carry about 6 days worth of spare supply. So you probably heard that being thrown around. We used to refine a lot of our fuel. So I think we had about 8 or 9 refineries. Now we've got 2, one up in Brisbane, one down in Melbourne. And the rest of our refined fuel comes from Korea, Singapore, India, places like that. And it's hard to get a hold of it. Turns out they use a lot of Middle East fuel to basically take it, and then they have to take crude and then crack it, right? So they got to break it into all the different products that end up in your pump. And they're freaked out because the people that are affected the most by war in the Middle East is Japan, Korea, India, and China. Most of the refined fuels come from China, India, and South Korea, and Singapore.
Interesting.
So that's why it's happening.
So as an energy expert and someone that spends all day in this space, I imagine the immediate concerns for people are, this is my fuel costs have gone up considerably. And I suppose part of the conversation really for you guys out there that are watching this as trade businesses is essentially how do we make sure that we're increasing our prices so that, we're accounting for these things with transport and, operational expenses and whatever it might be. However, as you kind of alluded to offline before, this is sort of the first domino to fall. Where do you sort of foresee this ending or heading?
Yeah, this is the undercard. This is definitely the undercard. Right. This is the lightweights going at it. So what you're seeing in fuel is, it gets everyone's attention. Yeah, and as I say, there's inflation, and that's what your audience is probably concerned with because they don't want to get squeezed. And by the way, that's what the refineries are worried about as well, hey? Because their cost of their source fuels are coming up. They're trying to sell on these cracked products. They got to make sure they make a spread. And unless they call basically a thing called force majeure on their contracts, they can get basically put out of business because their fuel supply comes up, and then they've got to make sure that they can pass that on. So that's inflation, which you're seeing, which will come through everything. But it's bigger. It's bigger than that. Like from an energy, as I say, I've been trading energy for 20 years. The main card is gas. So turns out you can't. So 20% of the world's LNG comes out of Qatar, right?
Wow.
And you don't want to float a large bomb, out through a very narrow strait. And they've actually shut a lot of the facilities. There's a facility called the Ras Laffan, and it's the largest gas field in the world, but it's a huge facility as well there, and it does liquefied natural gas, and I think there's an aluminum smelter. They do all kinds of stuff, a lot of petrochemicals, and they're kind of trying to shut that thing down. And if you shut it down, it doesn't turn back on very easily.
Right.
It takes a long time to turn the thing back on, like weeks, to get it back going, and that's going to leave a mark, no matter what happens.
Mm. And they're trying to shut it down. Qatar trying to shut it down, or
well, the Iranians are helping by throwing missiles at it, right? But the Qataris are having to shut bits of it down to protect it, or to stop the whole thing from having major problems, right? Because it's like a big process. But I guess why that counts for what we're talking about is that Asia works off LNG in a lot of ways. So do petrochemicals, steel, cement, all the plastics, right? So when you start thinking about that, you'll go, oh wow, every single thing that goes in the building industry is about to change potentially. Now, hopefully it won't, because this will be a temporary, thing. But in Asia, that's already starting to happen, because Asia gets a lot of its energy from the Middle East. And so that's why people are pulling back on giving us fuels. The Chinese, as it turns out, you'd be surprised that we get a lot of our aviation fuel from them, and they've kind of gone, nope. So
is it not
there's two pieces. One is that people are holding on to what they've got because they want to be careful, and the other is that this whole, all the things that we survive on, which are a lot, are still based on fossil fuels, in the building industry, are basically shutting down at the core. And by the way, and I haven't even got to agriculture yet. Agriculture is probably the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. Like your food, the price of corn could radically change
because of the equipment that drives it.
Equipment, fertilizer, urea. There's a bunch of different things that go into it. So yeah, you can't drive your diesel. You can't ship it. You can't get the big one is the fertilizer. So something like corn needs a special kind of fertilizer that comes out of the Middle East, as it turns out. And if you miss a planting cycle, well, then that's going to have a massive knock-on effect. Or if you have to change what you're planting. So these are the things that are coming down the pipe, right?
Okay.
And by the way, the Americans are fine. Like they've got enough of their own stuff, I think. But I think there could even be problems with crops in the United States, but in Asia and in Australia, that's where you'll see a lot of problems, and you'll see the government's obviously prioritizing with diesel for starters, but you'll see this with fertilizers and stuff. They're making sure that our agriculture keeps going.
Okay. So I read recently that essentially Iran has shut down that whole Strait of, is it Hormuz or whatever they call it? Yeah. And they said, we're letting through, I think it was India, Pakistan, basically.
Yeah. Everyone's turning off their transponders on their boats and sailing through. Iran exports about 90% of its oil out, well, officially, I think, out from what's a place called Karg Island, which is in the Persian Gulf, and it goes mostly to India and China. So if you think about it, the people are being hit the hardest by this are India, China, as I say, Korea, and Japan, because Japan and Korea depend on a lot of Kuwaiti, Qatar. Like if you draw the Strait of Hormuz, basically it's this little narrow thing that looks like this. Mm-hmm. And there's Iran, Kuwait,
UAE,
Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Saudi, then UAE down kind of at the bottom. And Saudi's getting their oil out the back door, so they're going out to the Red Sea. The UAE's got Fujairah, which is kind of on the other side of the Straits of Hormuz, so they can get some out there. But Kuwait is pretty screwed, and Iraq's got a little pipe that's going to Turkey, but again, pretty screwed, and Iran has to get its oil out. So they're trying to let their friends take it out, and you can see that's the big fight going on about, well, who gets to move things. But ultimately, and that's why I think that there was a development today where there was a bit of bombing of a really important gas field, which is shared between Iran and Qatar. Well, not the field itself. I think some of the facilities in Iran.
Bombed by the US. Or quick pause for a second. If this episode's hitting home for you, do us a favor. Please give it a follow on this app, and if possible, please share it with someone that you think would also benefit. This podcast was brought to you by tradiewebguys, where day in, day out, we work with tradies and contractors that are looking for predictable, manageable systems to close more jobs and scale with consistency. It's a proven system that's focused on closing more jobs, not just generating more leads. We have loads of case studies and reviews on the website to back this up if you want to go check it out. If you like the sound of predictable, manageable, and consistent growth, click on the link in the description or head to tradiewebguys.com.au and start the conversation. All right, back to it.
Israelis, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah. So it just all these things take time to come back online. The Straits of Hormuz. Have you ever been to Dubai?
I have been to Dubai.
Yeah. If you go up one of the big towers, you'll see a bunch of like old dhow, like old fishing ships, just rocketing back and forth between Iran and UAE. Obviously, I think that would be black market type stuff, but it's not very far.
Right.
It's 30 kilometers.
It's the Horn, isn't it? I'm looking at the map right now.
Yeah. So no one's putting a floating, even if you can get crude out right now, which they're getting some crude out, no one's putting LNG ships through there.
So, crude being crude oil, which they would then process into things like petrol, diesel, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
And then LP, which is the gas that comes off the drilling process.
So LNG, so you've got a whole bunch of gas. As an example, Bass Strait is where we used to get a lot of our oil from in Australia. We had a lot, and we had so much that gas comes out with it as well in the fields in Bass Strait. And Esso was basically like, look, if you guys can take the gas, it's kind of a byproduct. I think they charged Victoria like 50 cents. They're like, take the gas because we want the oil, and we have to take out both, and we have nothing. We don't know what to do with this gas. So that's why you've got that's why everyone in Victoria uses gas for heating and everything else, because it's a legacy of this. So they usually come out together. In the Middle East, it's a bit different because there's like this big monster Pars gas field. It's literally in the Strait. It's actually in the middle of the Persian Gulf between Iran and Qatar, and people stick straws on it from either side, and out it comes.
Yeah. So, I mean, living in, I guess it's not that it's going to solve the problem or change things immediately, but I mean, it's not unknown to us as Australians that, we do have a lot of natural resources here, and we are terrible at managing it compared to, the likes of Norway and all these countries that have this great systems and infrastructure built around, their natural resources. Like, would it be fair to say that if we did have our heads screwed on tighter and some bigger perspective, we would be able to withstand these storms?
I think that's where we're going. So if I had to say one thing that will change for probably your audience, is that where we're going is, friend shoring and being more self-sufficient or vertically integrated. And if you think about all your supply chains that go into Asia or go wherever, those are going to become a lot more fragile. And the anti-fragility is what the United States is doing, right? Like they're the biggest producer of oil in the world now. Right. They also are the biggest refiner in the world, turns out.
Bringing that industry back to the country.
You bring it back.
The thing of Trump to begin with, right? It's like, make America great again, bring it back.
Which you don't comment either way, but it's a lot more of a resilient kind of way of doing things. And for Australia, we are very gifted in terms of natural resources. I think you'll probably see a shift. We're going towards green energy. That also makes us more resilient because it gives us kind of other things, right? Like you don't want to be overly dependent on fossil fuels, as we're finding out, but you also don't want to transition away from them too soon when you don't have a great replacement. Right. And if you have all the natural resources, and then it goes to production as well. Like, it's not just, do we have the raw materials, but can you refine aluminum? Can you create steel? Are you able to 3D print things here? I mean, will that be, maybe it'll be a bit more expensive, but because you'll be able to get it done here without it being disrupted by geopolitics, shipping, these kinds of issues, will this be a change? Like, will that be what, hopefully happens here in Australia? I would significantly hope so. We don't have a lot of oil anymore, but there are some fields I think that could be tapped. But we do have a lot of gas, as I think everyone knows. And we're we're resource abundant, right? We've got some of the best minerals and basically everything in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw they recently discovered the largest iron ore depository ever known, or something like that. And they pretty much, I don't know if it's true or not, and it could be bullshit, but they pretty much just sold the whole lot to China.
And the quality is good too, right? Yeah, and we have coal, by the way, and coal will get coal's probably going to get a rise here because there's going to be fuel switching in Asia. So
what does this actually mean then? It's not going to solve the problem that our fuel prices are going to go through the roof. I mean, long term, maybe we bring it back onshore. But like you say, there's 2 refineries at the moment. They can't possibly supply an entire country.
No, we consume. I think we consume 750,000 barrels of, let's call it, fuel a year, and I think we refine maybe 200 of that. So so let's say 500,000 comes in from overseas at the moment.
Oh, okay.
It would be pretty tough to do that, but if you could kind of develop some biofuels, I think Kwinana, which is in Western Australia, they're looking at doing some biofuels there. If we could diversify a bit, also maybe think about where we're getting our fuels from. So maybe less out of China, potentially, things like that. That'll help. A big one will be, I think, is developing domestic industry and consumption here. That would be, pretty effective. I guess it means that things are a bit more expensive overall, but I think they're going to get there anyway. I think we're going to figure out that these supply lines are going to be a bit tricky going forward.
Sure. I mean, I guess the ripple effect of this is going to be largely political.
Yeah, I still think it comes down to fundamentally the way that we consume the consumer of disposable versus things that last longer, a bit more robust, and that goes from supply lines down to products. I mean, again, the building industry uses a lot of cement. I don't know if you know the amount of energy that goes into producing that, but it's a shit ton, which is larger than a metric ton.
Right.
And steel as well. All these things. So you want to have energy security, which I think in Australia is actually quite easy in terms of the electricity grid, that kind of stuff. Like we have an abundance of coal and renewables and natural gas, so that should be all right. But fuels. This is pretty tricky. We're going to have to keep more in reserve and make sure we got. I mean, how much does the world run on diesel still?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is as well, it has a shelf life, right?
It goes off.
Yeah. So,
and this is why miners are trying to go to things like hydrogen or batteries or something else, because storing diesel for large periods of time is shit.
Right. I guess though and that's fine. People have solar power panels on their homes and all this kind of stuff. But even if you own like a Tesla or something, majority of the Teslas are being charged off grid,
off coal overnight.
A home
at the moment,
battery in your house.
But every bit helps, right? Like if that Tesla is not going to the Bowser, well, that's good. I mean, forget that the Tesla is made out of a lot of petroleum products, right? Like that's not here nor there. But the fact is that from the acute sense, me, I have a plug-in hybrid because the government gave me a good subsidy to do it. And, right now that's the car we're using, and it doesn't have a huge battery, but, we're plugging it every night. It is running on coal. And then it's, but I'm not going to the Bowser, right? And that does make a difference. That makes us a bit more resilient. Is it expensive? Yeah. Is it a bit painful? Yeah. But, if it becomes part of the mix. I mean, diesel, Australians love diesel, right? I mean, there's not a lot of like the petrol diesel thing here. I think there's a lot more diesels than there is anything else. And all farm equipment, all military equipment is diesel, isn't it?
I read somewhere, I don't know how true it is, but they were talking about, I mean, there are a lot of countries around the world that are phasing out diesel. And I feel like, I mean, we have a brand new four-wheel drive that is diesel, and it's, they've got like, there's cleaning methods or whatever, which make the
like scrubbing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cleaner than like the output from the exhaust from a petrol car or whatever it might be. I feel like we're kind of embracing it. I don't know if it's old school or if it's just like, again, like I also feel like that whole woke movement to like, we're going to ban diesels is kind of like a,
I think
like we're going to turn off gas. It's like,
I saw Greta Thunberg advocating oil into Cuba. And I thought, well, there's a bit of a change there. So, I think being practical, right? And being reasonable, if your standard of living is going to go down massively because you've killed your economy, it's probably not the right thing to do. But if you can do things that improve your quality of life, then you do that. Mm-hmm. So I think like diesel's not going anywhere. The whole world runs on diesel. The developing world runs on diesel. Just go, okay, well, where's the diesel coming from? Who's refining it? And then how do I get it? And I think hopefully, as a government, we start and go, well, we're going to need to keep more reserves, and maybe we refine more here, and maybe we even produce some oil here and refine that too.
Do we? You mentioned before we do have some oil. Is that just oil that we just decided not to tap because it's cheaper to bring it in other ways, or what's the deal with that?
Some of it declined, and we didn't go after new reserves. Right. So there's some reserves probably in the Northern Territories in the Bight. So I don't know if you go to all the, no, don't drill the Bight. And the Bight's deep water as well. So it's pretty difficult to drill. I mean, oil and gas exploration is a painful business. You can spend an inordinate amount of money and miss, and people don't like it. But
I've been watching Landman. I'm all over it.
Yeah, perfect. But like there's the Beetaloo Basin in the Northern Territories, which I think has both what we call liquids and gas, and so something like that might be worthwhile just for energy security purposes, right?
In the energy trading world that you live in, does nuclear pop up very often?
Look, I mean. By the way, Japan's turning back on all its nukes at the moment. The United States is pushed towards that. It's a clean fuel that it has no emissions. It provides a lot of grunt, so it provides a lot of energy, right? Output, which is great if you're doing things like data centers. So if you need a lot of energy, it's great. Here in Australia, we do have the raw materials. It just takes a long time to build them. Like, unfortunately, I think we shit the bed in the last 15 years in terms of transitioning our power system. We were just a bit slow, my opinion. I mean, could be wrong. And I'm not pointing at anyone in particular on that, but I just say that that's one of those facts. It just means that nuclear is not the answer at the moment, but it doesn't mean it's not the long-term answer. That's something that all options should be on the table, right? China is still building coal. Vietnam, they'll also do a lot of renewables as well. As I say, we should be literally looking at our entire, energy. I mean, one of the concerns I'd have about nuclear is that, if you build a very large nuclear reactor, it can always find its way getting hit by a bomb. But in general, it makes a lot of sense. It's just it's expensive and it's very difficult to build. But so is our hydroelectric system, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, what's like fossil fuels
mixture?
Highly dependent.
Mixture.
Exactly.
Everybody slow down and transition in a smarter way.
Yeah.
There was a Canadian guy from Manitoba. I think he's Czech. Václav Semil. He wrote a really good book called "So How the World Really Works," and he basically, I'm going to summarize it for you, but basically what he said, and this goes for probably for your whole audience. He said, "Look, everybody slow down. The math doesn't work on how fast you want to transition. Like in the end, it'll get there, but you've got to be very careful because you'll destroy your standard of living and food and construction and petrochemicals, which go into PVC. Like I was just in the hospital, right? That is one big land of plastic, right? And all your fuel supply, you've got to make sure it's going to be harder to transition away from that than you think, even though you might feel anxiety about wanting to do it. It's not something you should do quickly. You should do it solidly, thoughtfully, because your entire society runs on fossil fuel, which, is his theory. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I think, becoming more and more known to all these tree huggers that are all in on things like Teslas, that the majority of the things, even in a Tesla, are built using petroleum products.
Yes,
including the tires on the wheels and the roads they drive on.
Well, that's it. But having said that, like again, and not to out myself as driving a plug-in hybrid, but it drives really well. Like my mates give me shit daily because it's like, it's not a V8, dude. Like it's not a real man car. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. But it's got 3 motors and it goes like stink. And I can either run on petrol or I can run on my battery. And yeah, sorry, dude. Love it.
Yeah.
But it's not cheap, right? Like, and it's not like if it was just battery, I don't think I'd want it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you. I just think inflation's going to kick up, and that's going to affect everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm more worried about food, personally. The impact on crop selection throughout the world based on tight fertilizer conditions, things like that. That could be a bit more significant as a knock on. And then this just a lack of gas in general. Like again, you might find that just your diesel went up, but then you go to buy some of the products. So say how you've quoted to build a house for somebody, and then go back into what happened with the guys, the refiners who are tight on the crack spreads. Well, you're quoting to build something. Then you go back to your usual Chinese supplier who goes, no, it's 3 times as much. You're like, well, why? It's just a PVC pipe. And the point is because the gas wasn't there. There's a tightness in being able to build it. I mean, I don't know if you saw, I think it's like yogurt containers, because the resin, you just can't get the resin, which again is a petrochemical, right? So everyone can get caught out in margin squeeze, which means that everyone will put in a whole bunch of fat to protect against getting margin squeezed, which means that we all pay more, which means we consume less. Which might mean, you end up in a recession, right?
But is that where you think, like realistically, it may head?
It's an interesting one because I think the United States has timed it pretty well from their own economy point of view. I mean, they've got, let's say, their largest producer of energy in the world now. They've got a lot of their own facilities, so they may be able to come to the rescue to a lot of people. It's more, I guess, about what happens out here in Asia, because we're the most exposed. I'm very curious. I'm too old to be able to say what I think what will happen, because I'm usually wrong. So, but I am watching, right? Like it's pretty fascinating. I still believe this is a lucky country, though. I think we have all the shit. We just have to do more with it here. Ideally.
Interesting. Well, mate, I appreciate the insight. I think it's like, when you're just subjected to all the stuff that you see in the media, much of which is not what I would consider really trustworthy. It's good to sort of hear from someone on the ground that has a bit more of a realistic take on it.
Yeah, traders don't have much time for politics, right? Like we're not good at it, and your politics won't help you get a trade right. So I'm more worried about what the facts are. But if this ends soonish, I think maybe your petrol prices might come back. But I think then you'll be talking about what happened to food, what's happening with cement, different building materials, steel. And that'll be the interesting stuff, because that'll be a bit longer lasting.
Yeah, interesting. All right, mate. Well, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. I hope that was useful to you guys out there. I know it's a bit doom and gloomy, but it's good to have a bit of perspective on.
It's not. We're the lucky country.
Yeah.
Great. We're good.
Yeah, it's just good to have, I suppose, some realistic conversations around where it may head and, you know, what could potentially be coming down the pipeline, just so we can plan and prepare for it. But I guess, you know, you guys definitely need to make sure that you're allocating accordingly with, you know, these rising costs, so that you're not, you know, you're covering them essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mate, thank you once again. Always good to chat. Look forward to the next one. And I think we can pretty much close that one up.
Cheers.
Hey guys and girls, how would you like all of the value adds left behind from our podcast guest all put together in the one spot? We've pulled every tool together, every template, every resource shared on the show, and we've packed them all into the Tradie Academy. It's free to join and it's built by the team behind the Site Shed and tradiewebguys. Inside, you'll get marketing tips, business tools, and first access to future resources, all in one simple dashboard. Just head across to tradie.wiki/pod. That's tradie.wiki/pod. The link's in the episode description. And once again, you just log in once and then you're all set. And if you want to get notified of upcoming episodes, hit subscribe or follow.